Hello, and welcome to a special edition of RACER Business Perspectives. My name is George Tamayo, and I'm the creative director at RACER Studio. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Dean Kessel, who is the CMO of America's largest veteran service organization, the American Legion. Dean, welcome to the show.
George, thanks for having me. Glad to be here today.
Awesome. So we're here to talk a little bit about the American Legion's entry and foray into motorsports. And you're off to a great start so far in the month of May with Tony Kanaan going to start the 500 this weekend from the middle of the second row. And of course, Alex Palou ran the American Legion colors earlier this year at the GMR Grand Prix, and he finished on the podium. And then obviously the big part of this is Jimmie Johnson is your lead guy for this whole program over the next couple of years in the number 48 Carvana car, who will be driving mainly road courses and not ovals this year. So before we get into the motorsports aspect, give us a little bit of background on what the American Legion is, because I think a lot of people have heard about the American Legion, but maybe don't quite know exactly what it is.
Right. So, George, the American Legion is a 102-year-old veteran service organization, the oldest and the largest that has been around since 1919. So 1.8 million members, 13,000 posts across the country. And you're right, probably most people that are not in the veteran or military world have seen a post in their local neighborhood. And that's part of the community outreach that we have there in every community in the country. But from a service perspective, we have an office here in Indianapolis, and then we also have an entire office in Washington, D.C. that is focused on legislation, focused on getting veterans their benefits that they deserve from the VA. In fact, we were able to secure on appeal $3.6 billion worth of benefits for veterans last year. So again, a lot of things that we do that you see in your community, but then also a lot of things that we do from a politics perspective, or a policy perspective rather, that influences veteran care across the country.
So you got to the organization a little over a year ago or so, and we're obviously faced with a marketing challenge, a challenge to grow the organization, and you've got a background in motorsports with your past history working in Winston with the Winston Cup back in the early NASCAR days, and then at Lowe's before coming to American Legion. Why did you think that motorsports was the right vehicle for marketing the American Legion, and most importantly, why IndyCar specifically?
Well, a couple of reasons, George. So one, you sort of look at the audience, right? And you're right. My mission is to grow membership and to grow dollars in revenue so that we can fund the programs that impact local and national initiatives. So it's very important for us. We are a nonprofit organization, so we don't exist without the good graces of folks donating to us and driving revenue. So you first look at the audience makeup, in IndyCar and motorsports in general has a tremendous amount of veterans and a tremendous amount of military that are fans of the sport. So for us, it was kind of an easy thing to look at from that standpoint, kind of the old adage, fish where the fish are. So we certainly took that approach to it from a sort of a demographic perspective and a psychographic perspective.
Sure.
But really, the impetus to get into IndyCar had a lot to do with what we were able to put together when I was at Lowe's with Jimmie Johnson. A 17-year relationship there. He turned it into 7 championships. And probably, if I'm not mistaken, one of the longest, if not the longest running motorsports sponsorship platform in all of auto racing. So when I heard that Jimmie was going to go into IndyCar, the wheels started turning with me. I'm only a year into this role here. We have a challenge with the American Legion, right? 102 years old, a lot of history and heritage, but then how do you sort of make that relevant to a new audience? And knowing what Jimmie did for Lowe's back in those days, I thought it was worth a phone call to Chip Ganassi Racing to see, hey, how can we get involved? And again, it's an interesting proposition too, because you have a guy like Jimmie who's already proven, right? What he's doing is is phenomenal as far as it relates to, the competitive side of it, coming from NASCAR into IndyCar. So for us to be able to take that journey with him and use his considerable clout and considerable voice to sort of echo our messages and amplify those in the veteran community, it was kind of a win-win for us. And, while it's great, you mentioned at the beginning of the talk here, everybody wants to win, but, Jimmie is already where a lot of drivers want to be. So, the story that he's able to tell with this journey is important to us and able to amplify our message. So it just kind of made a lot of sense. And plus what I knew about, what he'd done in the past, I knew I couldn't be Carvana, right? I couldn't be ENC on the car. We just don't have those sort of resources, but we could bite off a little bit of it and try and really maximize that. And, with what he's done so far, and really the month of May, we've had a great run here with what Tony's done, and, Ganassi letting us be on Alex's car as well. And he had a 3rd place finish in Texas, or I'm sorry, in here at Indy at the Grand Prix. So it's been a great month of May, and we're getting a lot out of it and enjoying this ride.
So thankfully for us, your decision to get involved in motorsports brought us together on a working relationship. And you initially came to us at RACER and RACER Studio to develop sort of the brand for motorsports. But as we got into the conversation, that evolved, didn't it? And so it really opened up into something that was a lot more than just the motorsports application. We developed a new brand identity for you that is going to be deployed across a whole range of marketing channels,
right,
not just in motorsport. In addition, there was a couple of commercial spots that we'll talk about as well in a little bit. But why do you think that conversation about motorsports became a catalyst for changing things more broadly across the organization?
Yeah, I think it's George. It's the biggest initiative I think the organization has undertaken from a marketing standpoint. We do a lot of other initiatives, but from a visibility and a high profile perspective, we knew it had an opportunity to really sort of to evolve the conversation about the American Legion and tell the story about the American Legion and some of the initiatives that we're teeing up here for the future to talk about that impact veterans and our membership at large. So it has become the catalyst because it has a big voice. We were able to sort of also buy some media on NBC. And then that was really the rationale to come to RACER, and the relationship that I had with Paul and now with you to say, hey, help us frame this look and feel to us on a television spot that we can get the message out about the American Legion and who we are and what we do. And it became a natural progression to sort of look at the brand and look at the voice, look at the cadence of how we talk about the American Legion. And frankly, it was time to sort of evolve it. The what we call the emblem, which everybody knows, that's in our community, will never go away. We're not looking to replace that at all. It carries all that esteem and that honor that we have with it. But, through the work that you and your team were able to do for us, it was an opportunity to evolve the brand, have a little bit cleaner voice, a little bit more distinct feel to it. We were able to create some motion into the logo as well. So we are planning on using that in a lot of other initiatives other than motorsports, but this was a great platform to kick it off. And the feedback we've had since the season started has been phenomenal. We've got people, Legionnaires wanting the logo, wanting it on branded merchandise, really taking off with it, which is, what you hope for when you start something like this.
Yeah, it's great news. I think we're all very pleased at the reception that it got, because there was a little natural anxiety that you're monkeying with something that's been around for 102 years. People get a little itchy when things change, but it's really been embraced pretty wholeheartedly, I think, right?
100%, and I think we put it in the right context too, right? So for our audience, the preponderance of them are military veterans, right? So they've seen the Army official seal and the Army marketing brand, and the same thing with the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines and the Coast Guard and now the Space Force is part of that branch too. So there's two separate. We will always keep the emblem. That's not going anywhere. But where we have an opportunity to market a little bit differently, then we will utilize the new brand that you guys helped us develop. So it's kind of one of those things that we talked about. You're kind of working on a commercial, and you're already under the hood working on something. Let's look at the brand itself and an audit perspective, which you guys did for us. And, the voice that came out of that is something that we're really proud of.
Yeah. So part of what we've been talking about here is the fact that we created a couple of commercial spots for you. One of those is already started running during the IndyCar broadcasts on NBC and NBC Sports and beyond. And we called that spot More Than What You've Heard. And it sort of lays a little bit of a groundwork, a foundation, an introduction into what the American Legion has historically accomplished and a little bit about what the day-to-day mission is as well. Can you talk a little bit more about why that spot was important to do in the context of this motorsports campaign, and kind of what's the message that it's really trying to get across?
Well, the message is primarily, geared toward an audience that may or may not know more about the American Legion, other than, oh yeah, that's the post in my neighborhood that, I know people that go there, right? It's got good food, it's got good prices. I may have had a prom there. My dad had a prom there. Something like that. It's been a pillar in the community. So it's important for us to sort of tell that story about who the American Legion is, what its history has looked like. And really, the title says it all, More Than What You've Heard. We want you to know that we're in your community. When COVID struck, we were able to mobilize our posts and our membership to whatever needed to be done, whether it's a food bank that had to be established there, whether it was a testing COVID site, or now we even have posts that are helping their communities distribute vaccines. So it really is. We have a saying at the American Legion, that talks about, veterans strengthening America. That's sort of a tagline that we've been working with and that we have out there. And that's part of that strengthening America, is how we are a tangible resource for that community. For when things need to happen, we're there to answer the call, and so forth. So that's sort of the rationale behind that first spot.
So we've got another spot that's actually going to be premiering this weekend during the 500 broadcast, and it opens the door to a very important message that the American Legion is going to try to get out, and possibly that next sort of seminal challenge that the American Legion is going to take on. We've got a little bit of a behind the scenes video that we're going to take a look at before we talk about that on the backside.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, action. Anytime you get to work on a commercial, it's really exciting. You get a star like Jimmie Johnson, it's unbelievably exciting. And then the mission of hopefully saving lives for our military veterans, it's spectacular. We had an opportunity to scout 3 places in Indianapolis. We ended up here at the beautiful Biltwell. There are half a dozen setups, and the building is so unique. Each one of these setups looks like you're in a different place.
The American Legion has a 102-year history. The challenge now in a second century is, how do you take the history and heritage of such an esteemed brand and then make it relevant for a new audience?
Broadening the audience, raising awareness, building the strength of the nation's largest veteran service organization, that the American Legion has the voice when they sit down in front of our legislators. They make a difference, and let's raise awareness as high as we can. Let's strengthen the Legion.
From the very beginning, it was really important to just kind of always put ourselves in that veteran perspective. They're the ones who go out there and fight every day for our country and for our freedoms. So from the very get-go, it was important to find veterans from all walks of life who could participate in these roles and just really be the authenticity of these TV spots. It just didn't feel like it would be the same if we couldn't do it without using actual veterans.
3, 2, 1.
Jimmie's amazing. I had the opportunity to sign Jimmie when I was at Lowe's 20 years ago. To watch him take that motorsports program and the company in general, the platform, and just explode it for 17 years and 7 championships. He was a great spokesman for the organization. So when I heard he was going to go into IndyCar, And I was looking for something for the organization to get involved with and get behind from a marketing that would be a splash, that would cause some conversation that's not being had right now. I picked up the phone and called Chip and his organization there and said, we want to get involved. How do we make that happen? And I view it as Jimmie's going to walk into the paddock at Barber Motorsports in a few weeks, and he's going to be the most popular driver at IndyCar. And we're going to be able to ride his coattails to some extent, but also use his power in the media to get our message out and impact our membership.
As we started to learn more about the American Legion, as we started to learn more about what their objectives are, we really came to a fairly quick decision early on that these spots are not about racing. We have to acknowledge the fact that legacy institutions like the American Legion need to attract a younger audience. We need to have a more contemporary voice. There's this new brand that we've created in alongside these commercial spots for the American Legion, which is a new identity system. It's something that won't replace their existing, what's called the emblem, which has been around since day one of the American Legion, so going on 102 years. But this is what we're calling a brand mark, something that we're using more for marketing purposes. And so that piece is something that is sort of a foundation for a new identity that's about being, appealing to people who are today in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. That's really the target audience that we're trying to reach. And to something that sort of says, we've got a new way forward.
Musically, I really want to encompass some of the pride and the inviting nature that the American Legion is all about.
My story as a driver, the team that I drive for with Chip Ganassi Racing, the fellow driver in the 48 car with Tony Kanaan, he has such an appreciation for the freedoms of our country, and in sharing stories with him, I just feel like we have such a neat opportunity here for the veterans to attach to motorsport, such an opportunity for us to raise awareness for the Legion, to then obviously raise more money and spread that out further to others, that I'm really excited for the program and know it's going to be a big success.
At the end of one of the spots, we're making the point that 22 veterans die every day, and we're trying to set a scene where Jimmie Johnson is going to talk about that. He's going to kind of punctuate this commercial with that and how important it is that we're losing these unbelievable lives, people who have given service to us, people who have risked their lives to keep us in the lifestyle to which we're accustomed. And in an effort to do that, we're shooting everybody individually in green screen. We're actually rotating the camera 90 degrees so we can capture them at a higher resolution. And in this scene, we're gonna place everybody around Jimmie for COVID safety in addition to that. And as the commercial goes, we're gonna slowly lose people out of that shot to remind people what it looks like to lose 22 lives.
From an advocacy perspective, and then also from what we do in our communities. The opportunity for our veterans to help strengthen America from top to bottom is essential.
So, having watched that, Dean, we put that together back in April, filming that spot, and just now coming up before the 500 on Thursday, you made a very important announcement, I think, for what the American Legion's next challenge is. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened?
Sure, George. I'm excited to share this with you because the American Legion has a history of taking on and tackling the biggest issues facing veterans all the way back to 1919. So I look at it in distinct eras. So if you look at what the World War I American Legion veteran did for the World War II veteran was create the GI Bill.
Yeah.
The World War II American Legion veteran took care of Agent Orange and worked on care and compensation and those type of things for the Vietnam veteran. Now the preponderance of our membership are Vietnam veterans, and what is going to be their lasting legacy for this next generation? So therefore, what is the biggest issue facing veterans today? And quite frankly, it's veteran suicide and mental health. So how can we as an organization tackle that from a prevention perspective, and look to be what I'm calling the tip of the spear to work with the White House, to work with Congress, to work with the Department of the Defense, to work with the VA in a collaborative manner to where we can raise awareness about this issue and its crippling hold on veterans, and what can we do to help mitigate that in the future. And it's not an easy lift, George. Like, this is not something that is going to come across the bow here. We're going to solve in a matter of 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. This is a big generational thing, and frankly, the American Legion, that's the DNA of the organization. We tackle those type of issues. So, we are announcing that we're going to take this on. We're building the roadmap, what that'll look like. The military is a very tribal or fraternal organization, right? I mean, you have your battle buddies, you have the people that are inside the organization that you work with side by side. The American Legion has a lot of that DNA as well. You come out of the military, you join the American Legion, you have that fraternal feel to it. So we feel like from a peer-to-peer perspective, we have a lot of resources there as well. Again, we're not mental health experts, right? So I don't want to establish that as any sort of caveat. But we do have the ability, the resources, the know-how, the political clout to get a lot of things accomplished. And that's really what we're doing here, with this announcement on Memorial Weekend as well, with the biggest racing audience that we'll have at IndyCar. So all these things sort of lined up for us to sort of talk about this in a very, proactive manner.
Yeah, it's really a heartbreaking issue. It's the statistics tell us it's 22 veterans a day on average are taking their own lives after, having served our country, which is, it's a tough statistic to wrap your head around. And I recall when we were talking about this initially, it wasn't something that the American Legion had yet decided that it was going to pursue, but we created the concept that we saw, and we addressed the fact that veterans are standing behind Jimmie Johnson and they're disappearing in the spot, symbolizing those 22 people that we lose on a regular basis. But what do you recall was the sort of the tipping point in saying, yeah, this is really what we're going to do. We're going to go after this mission because like I said, when we first came up with this concept, it wasn't really fully formed yet, was it?
It wasn't. I mean, we have been working as an organization, and in DC, we do have resolutions, and we have a committee in place that sort of looks at this from a research perspective. But to make it a priority within the organization is something that we have just elected to do. But it's not something that's new to the organization. We've been aware of this for a long time, but the fact that it is such a big issue for the veteran community, and the fact that it needs a solution, it goes back to what I talked about before. The GI Bill, creating the middle class, what we did with Agent Orange and the Vietnam veteran community. Yep. This just seems like the natural progression for us. What is that issue that's facing veterans? And there's nobody geared more towards impacting that than the American Legion. So now we're just sort of officially putting our flag in the ground and saying, we're coming after this, and we're going to do whatever it takes. Do we have all the answers right now? Absolutely not. Are we going to get the answers? Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly say on behalf of all of us here at RACER that we are immensely honored that you chose us to do this work with you, and we're proud of the journey we've taken together. So thank you for that, and thanks for the work that the American Legion is doing on behalf of all our veterans.
Thank you, George. And we are in the relationship business, right? I mean, a service organization is in the relationship business, and the cornerstone of any relationship is trust.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the trust of the veteran community, the trust of our membership, and the trust to work with partners like you all at RACER, that's the most important thing for us. So we're proud of the work that you guys have done with us and for us, and continue to do with us. And we think it's a great relationship, and are excited about the impact that it's going to make across the country.
We are as well. That's all the time we have for now. Thanks, Dean, for spending a little bit of time with us to talk about the American Legion. And remember, if you are watching this on YouTube, remember to like the channel and subscribe to RACER on YouTube. And we will take you out of this with a look at the commercial spot that we put together called When They Came Home. Thanks very much, everybody.
When our veterans came home from serving their country, the American Legion helped them with the GI Bill to get a head start. When they came home from Vietnam, we helped those affected by Agent Orange to get care and compensation. Now, a new generation is dealing with their own challenges. Every day, 22 veterans who put their lives on the line for our country came home and took their own. As it has for over 100 years, the American Legion continues to advocate for our veterans, so when they leave service, there's a place for them to go to continue serving and, when needed, to get help.